Why does France always appear uninvited, claiming to save Africa? Do they still think it's 1850? While the rest of the world is moving forward, France is playing colonial cosplay with 2,000 soldiers prepped for Niger. Let's be real. Nobody buys their stability mission nonsense anymore. If it's about peace, why does Africa get poorer every time they show up? Why does insurgency grow wherever they go? And most importantly, who gave France the right to act like Africa's angry landlord? If this sounds infuriating, it's because it is. But trust me, it gets worse. This isn't just a story about Niger. It's about a global shift reshaping Africa's future, and the West is panicking. But where does the desperate action take West, if anywhere? Let's find out.
In this video, we take a look at Niger, Captain Ibrahim Traore's coup, and how France is secretly planning to send about 2,000 soldiers to invade Niger. Now, after Captain Ibrahim Traore took over the country of Niger, there has been several coup attempts, but all have proved futile or unsuccessful. France was kicked out of Niger, and now it is planning to invade Niger once again. So let's keep watching the video and we'll come back here and talk more about it. But before we watch the video, if you haven't yet liked this video, kindly like the video and also subscribe to the channel. Let's watch the video together.
Imagine living in a country that provides 20% of the uranium powering France's nuclear plants, yet over 80% of its population has no access to electricity. That's Niger, a nation paradoxically rich in resources but steeped in poverty, thanks to decades of one-sided deals that have left its people in darkness, both literally and figuratively. For years, uranium, the lifeblood of France's nuclear energy sector, has flowed out of Niger's mines under contracts brokered by French corporations with the complicity of Nigerian elites. These deals were a textbook example of neo-colonial exploitation. France paid a fraction of what the uranium was worth, while Niger reaped almost no tangible benefits. The money barely trickled into public services, leaving schools underfunded, hospitals under-equipped, and basic infrastructure crumbling. Consider the staggering contrast. Paris, glowing with the energy generated by Nigerian uranium, symbolizes modernity and wealth. Meanwhile, in Niger, rural areas often rely on firewood and kerosene lamps. Children born in a country sitting on a treasure trove of natural resources struggle to study at night because they have no access to electric light. Over 80% of Nigerians live without electricity. The injustice isn't just economic, it's moral. The anger bubbling beneath the surface finally boiled over. The recent coup wasn't an isolated event, but the culmination of years of frustration and exploitation. When Niger's military ousted its Western-aligned government, it wasn't a routine power grab. It was a statement, a rebellion against a system that had robbed the country blind for decades. The junta didn't just stop with words. Their boldest move was cutting uranium exports to France. This decision didn't just inconvenience Paris, it sent shockwaves through the entire Sahel. France, whose energy independence relies heavily on Nigerian uranium, found itself scrambling to address the fallout. This wasn't just about energy security, it was about control. But the junta wasn't done. They turned their attention to the French military presence, which for decades had been framed as counterinsurgency operations. In reality, these bases were a symbol of French dominance, a constant reminder of who held the power. By expelling French troops, the junta effectively closed a chapter on a long history of military interference disguised as aid. This act of defiance struck a chord with the Nigerian people. Thousands poured into the streets, celebrating what they saw as a reclaiming of their nation's dignity. Signs reading "France out" and chants calling for sovereignty echoed through the cities. To the people of Niger, this wasn't just about uranium or troops, it was about self-respect, about showing the world that they would no longer be treated as pawns in someone else's game.
Huge crowds could be seen marching towards a French military base in Niger's capital, Niamey.
Of course, the Western media had its spin. Reports of instability and insurgency dominated headlines. The narrative was predictable, a dangerous coup that threatened democracy and security. But the truth on the ground was starkly different. Far from collapsing into chaos, Niger held its ground, bolstered by solidarity from neighboring countries like Mali and Burkina Faso. These nations, having faced similar exploitation, saw Niger's rebellion as their own. This was no longer just a story about one country. It was about an entire region pushing back against a legacy of exploitation. Niger's actions lit a fuse, and the flames of resistance began spreading across the Sahel. What had started as an isolated act of defiance was quickly becoming a regional movement for self-determination. The stakes were clear. This wasn't just about uranium or military bases. It was about reclaiming the narrative, reclaiming resources, and most importantly, reclaiming dignity. For the people of Niger, the question wasn't if they would succeed. It was how far their stand against exploitation could inspire others. Niger's bold moves didn't just disrupt France. It inspired a wave of solidarity across Africa. For decades, countries like Mali and Burkina Faso have faced the same script. Western nations arrive under the guise of help, establish military bases, and siphon off resources while leaving poverty and instability behind. Now, the script is flipping. When Niger expelled French troops, Burkina Faso and Mali immediately voiced their support. Together, they've formed a tri-nation alliance that's shaking the foundation of Western dominance in the Sahel. This isn't just a political alliance, it's a cultural and economic awakening. Burkina Faso's Ibrahim Traoré has emerged as a key figure in this resistance. In his speeches, he's called out the hypocrisy of Western aid, describing it as a tool of control rather than support. Under his leadership, Burkina Faso has rejected Western military assistance, focusing instead on regional cooperation. Consider the recent moves to coordinate security efforts across the Sahel. By pooling resources and sharing intelligence, these nations are proving that they don't need France, or any Western power, to solve their problems. This kind of self-reliance is what the West fears most. But this isn't just about politics. It's about pride. For centuries, African nations were told they couldn't survive without Western intervention. Now, they're proving otherwise. The question is, how far will France go to regain control? France claims it's in the Sahel to fight insurgency, but let's be honest. This isn't about insurgency. It's about territory. For decades, French forces have operated in the region under missions like Operation Serval and Operation Barkhane, supposedly aimed at stabilizing the region. Yet, what do we see today? Rising insurgency, fractured societies, and growing anti-French sentiment. If these missions were so successful, why has the Sahel become more unstable? The truth is, these operations weren't designed to help Africa. They were designed to help France. Take Mali as an example. Operation Serval was celebrated in Western media as a victory against insurgents. But in reality, it left the country more divided, with insurgent groups exploiting the power vacuum left behind. Then came Operation Barkhane, a multi-nation initiative that promised peace but delivered resentment. And let's not forget the economic side of this playbook. France's grip on Niger's uranium isn't just a business deal, it's a lifeline. French households rely on cheap African resources to power their homes, yet the Nigerian people see none of the benefits. This is the essence of neocolonialism, taking everything and giving nothing. But the game is changing. As nations like Niger and Burkina Faso take control of their resources, France's dominance is slipping. And with it, the entire Western narrative of benevolent intervention is crumbling. But France isn't sitting quietly. After Niger's bold rejection of France, cutting uranium exports, expelling troops, and severing ties, France has moved to its most predictable playbook, military posturing. As of the latest reports, France has prepared 2,000 soldiers for a potential intervention in Niger, framing it as a mission to restore stability and combat insurgency. But beneath the lofty rhetoric lies a far more insidious reality, a desperate attempt to claw back control over a region slipping from its grasp. This military buildup isn't coming out of nowhere. France's energy security depends heavily on Nigerian uranium, and the recent embargo has sent shockwaves through Paris. For decades, France's nuclear plants have relied on cheap and uninterrupted uranium from Niger to power homes, industries, and even its ambitions of being a global nuclear energy leader. Without Niger, France faces potential energy shortages and soaring costs, an unthinkable scenario for a nation that prides itself on its energy independence. But there's an uranium. France has long viewed the Sahel as its sphere of influence, a region where its military presence serves both strategic and symbolic purposes. French bases in Niger and neighboring countries have been marketed as counter-insurgency hubs, yet their presence has done little to curb insurgency. Instead, these bases have become symbols of neo-colonial control, deepening anti-French sentiment across the region. Losing Niger means not only losing access to critical resources, but also losing its foothold in the Sahel altogether, a blow that France's leaders seem unwilling to accept. Now, with 2,000 soldiers at the ready, France is signaling that it won't back down quietly. Potential intervention is being framed as a response to the growing influence of insurgent groups in the region, a narrative that's conveniently timed to justify military action. But let's pause for a moment and ask the hard questions. If France's military interventions in Mali, Burkina Faso, and Chad haven't eradicated insurgency, why would Niger be any different? Why does insurgency tend to increase in regions where foreign troops are stationed? And most importantly, who gets to decide that military intervention is the solution? France or the people of Niger? The truth is glaring. This isn't about insurgency, it's about control. France is attempting to disguise its economic and political motives behind a veneer of security concerns. By painting Niger as unstable and insurgent-ridden, it's laying the groundwork to justify a military invasion that's less about peacekeeping and more about maintaining dominance. But France's approach is fraught with risks. The Nigerian junta, backed by massive public support and solidarity from neighboring countries like Mali and Burkina Faso, has made it clear that they won't accept foreign interference. Any military action by France could spark a regional conflict, turning the Sahel into a battleground between African nations fighting for sovereignty and Western powers clinging to their dwindling influence. Moreover, the geopolitical stakes extend beyond Africa. France's actions are being closely watched by global players like Russia and China, who have been increasing their influence in Africa through trade, investment, and military partnerships. A French intervention could open the door for these powers to deepen their relationships with Niger and its allies, further eroding France's standing in the region. The people of Niger have also made their stance clear. Protests against French interference have grown louder and more widespread, with Nigerians taking to the streets to demand sovereignty and self-determination. The banners, the chants, and the unwavering resolve all send a powerful message. France may bring its soldiers, but it won't win the hearts or the land of Niger. And then there's the financial cost of intervention. Deploying 2,000 soldiers isn't cheap, and France is already facing domestic pressures, from energy inflation to public dissatisfaction with its foreign policies. Many French citizens are questioning why their government continues to prioritize military adventures in Africa when pressing issues at home remain unresolved. The growing disconnect between France's foreign ambitions and its domestic challenges is becoming harder to ignore. So, what's France's endgame here? Even if it manages to launch an intervention, it won't be met with the compliance it's used to. The Sahel is no longer the pliant battleground of the colonial era. African nations are pushing back harder than ever, and any misstep by France could backfire spectacularly, solidifying its image as an imperialist power out of touch with modern realities. But should France be stopped? After all, there are only allegations against France that it doesn't help Africa.
Welcome back. So Captain Ibrahim Traore has been a beacon of hope for the people of Africa. Africa has been exploited for quite a long period of time, casting our mind back to about 5 centuries, talking about the transatlantic slave trade. And even after slave trade has been abolished, still colonial masters keep on exploiting Africa. In terms of our resources, talk about the human resources they keep exploiting us. The natural resources, the least said, the better. All our natural resources are being mined in our continent and exported to this developed world in order to help better the life of the people in the developed world and leave the people of Africa who produce all these natural resources impoverished. Now, let's take a critical attention or a critical look at the country of Burkina Faso. Now, the uranium in Burkina Faso, which is used to power houses in France, uranium that is mined in Burkina Faso is transported to France and then used to power homes in France, whereas people in Burkina Faso do not have access to electricity. People in rural areas would need to rely on kerosene lamps and other forms of power in order to be able to have light in their homes. Meanwhile, this uranium is used to power homes in France, whereas people in Burkina Faso do not get access to electricity. Quite paradoxical, right? So after Captain Ibrahim Traore took over the country of Burkina Faso, he sacked all the French military who were there in Burkina Faso and closed down all military bases. Now, France is heading towards a critical power crisis if it is not able to get access to the uranium in Burkina Faso. So France does not want to back down on this journey. It still wants to keep Burkina Faso under control so they could get access to their uranium. So France is secretly planning to invade Burkina Faso with about 2,000 troops who have been prepared in order to invade Burkina Faso. It is alleged that these troops will arrive in Côte d'Ivoire and later be deployed to invade Burkina Faso. This is a cowardly attempt. I think in this 21st century, as countries, we need to be sovereign and we need to manage our resources on our own. Trade terms should be favorable for all parties so that indigents in the country where natural resources are being mined can also get benefit from these resources that are being mined. Looking at this uranium that is used to power homes in France, this same uranium can be used to the benefit of the people of Burkina Faso to provide stable electricity for them. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Do you think that these troops who are being deployed will be able to succeed in invading the country, or you think it will prove futile? Let me know what you think about all these in the comment section below. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and your family, and also don't forget to share on other social media platforms like WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, and other social media platforms. Also subscribe to the channel. Just click the subscribe button down here. Click on the subscribe button. Click as well on the notification bell. And I'd like to see you again in my next video.